all of you being here. Just so, by way of background a little bit, Brandon Fish, right on time. I like it. Welcome, Brandon. Just a little bit of background since we have so many guests. First of all, thank you so much, guests, for being here. We do appreciate you very much. And we are glad you're here to be with us for this. The Lunch and Learn program is something we've been doing for several years now. We do it on the first Friday of every month. Typically, of course, we do this at Tijuana Joe's, which is a Mexican restaurant on the corner of Lower Roswell and Johnson Ferry Road. And obviously, we're not able to do that given the times that we're experiencing now. But we, I did want to try and keep this going, give us something that was at least a little semblance of normalcy. And one of the bonuses, I guess, or silver linings of all this is that we are able to do this in a way that makes it much easier to join remotely. So we actually have one guest from Athens. I kind of doubt our Athens guest would join us from if we were at Tijuana Joe's. So I appreciate you being here, and we're glad we're here. Some of you may have seen this before. This is a presentation that I've given before. One thing, first of all, when I present, typically I have a beer in hand. Today I'm drinking water because it's Lent. But the point of that is this is an informal conversation. I don't want to be just a talking head spitting out a slideshow to you. So a couple of things. There is a worksheet that I had a link to that is available if you want to print a copy of that or download a copy of that and work on it with us. You don't necessarily need the worksheet. It's very simple, but I would at least encourage you to have some paper to jot some things down on while you're doing this. And if you have any questions or comments along the way, let's keep this interactive. And lastly, some of you may have seen this specific presentation before. I have added to it a little bit so that there is a little bit new. So if you've seen this before, it's not necessarily the same presentation that I delivered last time, which was sometime last year. So the title is Building Your ICP, and that title is intended to be a little bit vague, because of course the first thing that you'd want to know or you'd want to ask is, what is ICP? And then if you looked at the Facebook group, you probably saw a picture of these guys. Does anybody know who these guys are?
International Clown Posse.
So close. That would be the Insane Clown Posse.
Insane Clown Posse.
ICP stands for Insane Clown Posse. And let's talk about Insane Clown Posse just for a couple minutes. Let's take a look, though, at some interesting characters. Let me know, does anybody know who these people are?
Juggalos.
Juggalos, yes indeed. Which of course begs the question, what is a juggalo? So there's a Wikipedia page that tells you this. First of all, I'm blown away by the fact that there's a Wikipedia page on this. But common characteristics of identifying a juggalo are they drink Faygo, they listen to horrorcore, which I had to practice in a mirror to say, and other types of underground rap music. They wear face paint like a clown or like corpse paint, which is odd. They wear hatchet gear, which is of course branded stuff. Sorry. The Hatchet Man logo is applied on personal effects, die-cast, worn as jewelry. They have tattoos. They do their hair in this spider leg style. They have a gesture of a wicked clown, which is a W and a C, arms crossed over. And they have this whoop whoop call. These are very specific things, right? And they also have some generally tongue-in-cheek obsession with murder. Big groups of them can be kind of scary, actually. But if you look at this, again, you can see examples of a lot of this. The guy with the red scarf around his neck, that logo on his shirt is the Hatchet Man logo. The ones in the top right corner are making that wicked clown sign that we talked about a second ago. And of course, most of them are wearing face paint. So you can see some of what we were talking about. And then the guy on the left in the picture in the middle is carrying, I think, a Faygo with him. So the This is the culture that these people have created. So why is this interesting? Well, there are tens of thousands of juggalos, okay? And I point that out because Insane Clown Posse knows exactly who their fans are, and they have that level of detail that they can give you about who their fans are, right? Well, why does that matter? Well, let's take another look at ICP. They have been around since 1992, so nearly 30 years. They released their last album in February of 2019. And if you're wondering how much could they possibly have done, they have produced 15 studio albums, 53 singles, 9 extended plays, and 17 compilations. And that might not be all that impressive, except that 3 of their albums have been certified gold, which means they've sold 500,000 copies, and 2 of those have crossed the 1 million mark and have been certified platinum. Insane Clown Posse also founded its own indie record label, Psychopathic Records, in 1991, so again, 30 years ago. Still in business today, and they have had, they're not at their peak now, but they've had during their peak years, eight-figure top-line revenue. These 2 jackasses started all of this, okay? So my question is there a lesson here, right? We're all in BNI groups, we're all in business, we're all ultimately chasing profit, right? But we need to know, where does profit come from, okay? Now, some of you may have been through some of the Action Coach programs, so you've seen this before. This is not proprietary, this is a basic formula, right? Leads times your conversion rate equals the number of customers. The number of customers times the number of times they buy times the average amount you make per sale, that's your revenue. Multiply that by your margin, and that's your profit. Okay, this is a straightforward formula for literally every single business that there is. Okay, now when you look at this, you realize that you can control 5 things. You can control how many leads you have. You can control what your conversion rate is. You can control how many times you sell to a particular person, and you can control how much your average sale is worth. You also have some control over what your margin is. Now, you don't have unlimited control over all that, but you can influence these things, okay? Now, we're gonna focus today on the top of the funnel, the leads and the conversion rate, really the leads, okay? Because this is what we're gonna try and identify. Now, having leads, and out of those 5 things, the most expensive thing to generate or to change or to influence is leads. Generating leads costs you more than improving your conversion rate, improving how many times you sell to the customers you've already got, improving how much your average sale is, or improving your margin. You can improve your margin just by cutting your expenses. You can improve your average sale by raising your prices, okay? And there are things you can do to improve your conversion rate or your number of transactions. Improving your number of leads is very, very expensive, okay? So if we know that lead generation is very expensive, logically speaking, we would want to make sure that whatever we do to generate leads is as effective as possible. If you have 2 options that cost the same, and one of them is going to generate you 100 leads and the other one is going to generate you 1,000 leads, you'd be crazy to pick the former, right? Because you can spend the same money and have 10 times as many leads come in the door. If all your other numbers are the same, if you have 10 times as many leads coming in, your profit will go up by 10 times. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do is try and figure out, how can we zero in on what leads ought to look like, what good leads ought to look like. So if you have your form here, go ahead and get it and grab a pen, because we're going to start with the exercise part of this, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about your favorite client or customer of all time. It's probably, as soon as I said that, as soon as I put the slide on the screen, you probably have somebody in mind. And if you've been in business for a really long time and you can't think of somebody from all time, think of somebody from the last 4 or 5 years. Who's your favorite client, favorite customer? If you have several, just pick one, okay? Everybody got somebody in mind? Anybody, am I leaving anybody behind? I think we're good so far. Okay, your favorite is probably your favorite, at least in part because he or she was an ideal fit for your business. There may be other reasons. I think we all have customers that we just absolutely adore, no matter who they are. and no matter what they're quote unquote worth to our business, we just love them. But in all likelihood, you have a client out there who's among your favorites who is a perfect fit for your business. And you said, if I had 100 of those, or I had 1,000 of those, or I had nothing but those, I would be successful beyond my wildest dreams. So if you can identify that person, that ideal client or customer, you benefit in two ways, right? Because you can market directly to them, directly to people like them. And if you are dealing with somebody that you love dealing with, you're going to have a higher conversion rate. So I think that if you go back and look at the funnel that we looked at a minute ago, not only will this impact how you're generating leads, I think this will also impact your conversion rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to build your ICP, which is your actual, this is what it really stands for, your ideal client profile or your ideal customer profile. Works either way. And I think that building this is critical to maximizing the success of your business. So question is, how do we do that? And the answer is we try and be as systematic as we can. We're going to look at 4 different categories that we're going to try and identify some characteristics in if we can. Okay, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time in each of these as we go through them. Okay, so the first thing, we've got that real world example that you thought of. So at the top of your page, go ahead and write down the name of the real world example that you came up with. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through these categories by categories, and we're going to think of characteristics based on that example, based on that real world example that you've come up with. Now, if you're stuck, one thing you can do, think of your very worst customer or client that you've ever had. And then as we're going through this, list characteristics that are opposite of that. Okay, so the first category is going to be demographic. This is who they are. This is very basic stuff. We generally would start with things like gender and age if you're used to dealing with individuals. You might deal with or put the role or their stage in life. If you're dealing with people who are on a personal level, you'd want to know, are they a parent? Are they a child? Are they single? Are they married? Are they divorced? If they're in business, where are they in business? Are they students? Are they retirees? Are they executives? Are they more like the worker bee types than the executive types? Blue collar, white collar, whatever you can think of here. And then of course, their background, their education, their experience. These are some examples of some things that you would be looking at if your customers tend to be individual people. If you're talking about companies, then characteristics of those companies. What industries are they in? How big are they? What is their revenue if you know? Are they publicly traded or not? Are they local? Are they not? Those sorts of things. Who are these types of customers? So let's take about 3 or 4 minutes to write out some characteristics, demographic characteristics of your ideal customer. And you've all muted yourselves, but feel free to chime back in at any time if you want to share anything or if you have any questions.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
is this where we would put something like, so one of the characteristics I can note between the best and the worst is that the best has a consistent schedule and the worst has a really sporadic schedule.
Hmm?
Does that go here or is that going to go somewhere else?
It might go somewhere else, but
Okay.
if it fits who they are, then go ahead and list it here. The point of breaking these up into categories is to try and give you a systematic way to work through identifying as many characteristics of these people as you can, because the more you can identify, the more specific your profile is. So to that end, I'm not that concerned which particular category something goes in, as so long as you're identifying characteristics that are relevant to your business.
Okay.
Anybody need more time? We're going to keep moving. Okay. All right, so the next one is the psychographic dimension of this, which is how they think. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at, what do they value? What do they find frustrating? What are their pain points? This is sales 101, right? Find out what hurts them the most and see if you can solve that problem. Do they have goals that they are trying to meet? And can you find out what those are? Or have they shared those with you? Do they have a vision, an overarching vision of where they want to take their business, or where they want to take their personal lives, or what they want to do that you can help them with? And is there any other particular personality or other profile? Obviously, we've got Richard on there on the call. He, that's his bread and butter, is profiling people and figuring out how to scientifically evaluate who these people are so that you can match them to the right job. Well, the same kind of things can apply. Can you identify anything in their particular personality of your ideal client that you want to target or that you want to go after? And you can use anything you want. You can use Richard's products. You can use the disc profile, the whatever the others are that aren't coming to me right this second. But the point is, what in their personality can you identify that helps explain how they think? So let's take a couple minutes and try and identify that, as many of those characteristics as you can.
It does specific, Mike. I need a word.
You need a word?
Yeah, so I actually ended up having two very different, and I wanted to see where they overlapped, favorite clients. And then I have my worst client, and I'm writing out their stuff for each three, and I'm looking at where they're overlapping and where they're not. One of them, so the worst client was like absolutely super flaky, not consistent or reliable in any way. And one of the best ones, super reliable, very consistent on what she's going to do. The man who's retired, he's not reliable or consistent in that he's going to like always keep his appointment, but I know that the appointment will get canceled if it's on a good golf day, like, and that he also will come back. So I'm trying to remember, I'm very bad with vocabulary, so I'm trying to remember the word that would describe someone who's at least like going to have the same like repeatable behavior.
Predictable?
That one. Thanks.
Sure thing. Jack of all trades, master of none. All right, does anybody else need or want more time on this one? Or are we ready to move on to the next one? Okay, so the next category is behavioral. What do they do? We've talked about who they are and how they think. Now we want to know what they do. And so you're looking for things like if you're a B2B customer or a B2B business, then your customer has a job and maybe you want job description items of some kind. Are they overworked or are they part-time? Are they the owner of the business or not? Are they very systematic or are they very disorganized? Do they come across as very strategic or are they somewhat impulsive when decision making? These kinds of things, any other behavioral characteristics that you notice about your client. And so to Amanda's point a few minutes ago, when she was asking, hey, which category does this fit into? I think how they behave and who they are kind of overlap a lot. I'm not as hung up on you writing down a particular characteristic under a particular heading as I am in you capturing that characteristic in the first place. So that's the whole point of this, is just to make sure we're thinking through this as systematically as we can. So think about what your ideal client does and try and write down as many of those characteristics as you can.
Hey, Mike, it's Stucky. I'm sorry I had to step away for a moment. I had one of my clients, supermarket guys, were calling, so I had to handle some things for him. So I hear nobody talking, so I'll pick up from here.
That's all right. Everybody's doing kind of heads down work right now. So we've been through listing demographic characteristics of your client, who they are. We've been through psychographic clients, how they think. And then right now people are going through and thinking through how they behave, what they do, and trying to list those characteristics as much as they can. So we've got one more category that we'll take up in a minute.
All right.
Does anybody else need more time, or are we ready to move on? Okay. So the fourth category is environmental, and this can be pretty basic also. This is where they are. So you'd want to look first and foremost at the size and scope of their territory. Are they a global company or a national company? Are they regional? Are they confined to one or a few states, or just city or cities, or even smaller than that? For example, an auto mechanic, I'm pretty sure, confines his target market to within 3 miles of the actual shop. What about their customer? Are they single? Are they family? Are they solo practitioners or sole proprietors? Are they huge companies with 500 or more employees, et cetera, et cetera? You want to know about that. Are we talking about commercial, industrial, retail people? Are we talking about people who are residential? Do they live in houses, apartments, condos? Is their area urban or suburban or rural, or any combination of these? This one should take probably a little less time, So let's just take a minute and write out as many of these characteristics as you can think of. All right, anybody need more time? We good to move on? All right, so to recap that one more time, the 4 components of your ICP that you're looking at are demographic, who they are, psychographic, how they think, behavioral, what they do, and environmental, where they are. Okay? A couple more points that I want to point out before we pause for a second is you can have as many ICPs as you want. You heard Amanda say that she was actually trying to fill this out for 3 different people that she was thinking of, 2 who are her favorite clients, even though they're very different, and 1 who is her worst client, and she's trying to come up with the opposite of that. You can also, I would suggest that your ICP description should be a living document. You're going to do this today. I don't want you to throw this in a drawer and never look at it again. And we're going to look at how we revisit this in just a couple minutes. But don't be afraid to revisit it regularly and often. So before we move forward with the rest of the presentation, I want to open up the floor. If anybody has any comments about, do you find that some of these categories are more important than others? Or is there something that you think is missing or left out, or something that you want to consider that may not fit cleanly in any of these categories?
Well, I thought this was a great exercise, doing it again. I have 2 different markets. I have people that are clients that looking to lose weight and transform their health. And then I also have coaches that I train. And so it was good to do for both of them because they actually don't overlap, but they definitely have a few of the same characteristics: value health, or successful in other areas, have high emotional intelligence. I think what was interesting for me is like the vision. Sometimes I don't always know, maybe more of my coaches, I know their vision more than my clients. So I know my clients want to reach a goal, but it was interesting that this helped me become aware of how to get to know them better and how I can serve them better. So thanks.
Yep.
So one of the things that I was trying to consider as I was looking through and we're talking about all the different characteristics, and I was also trying to reflect really quickly on what made me think that they were a favorite client. And a lot of it has to do with like the consistency of how often they come in and how reliably they continue care, even if there's a disruption in life, things like that. I started trying to think about one of our programs that we're building, and I realized we have not yet in that program had what I would consider a favorite client. And then, so that's making me think about that. And then another is about, have we had a client who refers us in a way that is our favorite? And I realized no, probably the client who refers us the most people who can't afford us. So trying to reflect on those things are where, where we don't have a good example yet. That's where I think I'm more struggling or going to have to take a longer time to think about it.
Those are good thoughts. And that's a useful byproduct of an exercise like this one, is to be able to work through stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to share or questions, comments? Okay, so as we say on the slide here, don't be afraid to revisit it regularly and often. And this, I will tell you, I don't have a problem figuring out who my ICP is. I've got that pretty well nailed down, and I've got several of these. But I do have a little bit of a hard time personally keeping on top of revisiting these things. So I want to take you through really kind of how I do this and how I revisit my clients and make sure that I'm actually sticking to the model and the model doesn't need to be refined in any way. And the easiest way, I think, to continue to refine or keep up with who your ideal client might be and what that profile looks like is to consistently review your current clients and customers to see who continues to fit the profile. So I'm going to take you through a way to do this systematically. And this is going to be a little bit different for everybody. You can use the system that I use, but it might not be perfect for you depending on what kind of business you're in. But this is what I use and it works well for me. So I'm going to encourage you to decide how to rank your clients and customers in 6 different areas. Okay. And the first one is the most important one to me, and that is my attitude about the client. Because if I don't like the client, none of the rest of it really matters. So I think it's important for me to look at, okay, what do I think about this person or about their case? I also want to know, what is my attitude about the actual work? Is the work good? Is it exciting? Does it challenge me, or does it not? I don't think there's any shame in asking what's in it for me. Is this a client who can pay me very well, or is this a client who I'm going to have to write off part of the bill, or I have to work for free? What is the client's attitude about me? This is a 360 process. If your clients don't like you, then that can impact whether or not they're a good client for you. How good is the client or customer? What I'm looking for there is, are they timely about paying their bill? They can have all the money in the world. If they don't pay until I bang on them 6 times, that's not an ideal situation for me, right? And then finally, my ability to do the work. This could be different depending on your industry, but for me, people bring me stuff all the time that I can't do, that I don't know how to do. And so is this something that is my bread and butter and I can do it all day long? Or is this something where I'm going to have to go learn substantive areas of law? Or is this something where I'm a total fish out of water and I can't do this without a significantly steep learning curve, okay? Then you want to decide, how are you going to rank your clients and customers in each of those categories, okay? So I suggest you come up with a range of values. And I also suggest that higher numbers mean better traits so that you're consistent in how you rank in each one of them. You do not have to use the same range for each category. I do. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But if one of those categories is more important to you than others, you may want to slide your scale to account for that, okay? And then you want to decide, once you've scored your clients, how are you going to group them, okay? Are your clients amazing? These are the people you want. These are your raving fans. These are the people that go out and tell everybody else about you, so that you're getting referrals from these people pretty consistently. Are they your bread and butter clients? These are probably the core of your business. These are the ones who are, they may not be raving fans, but they're good clients. They bring you work consistently, and it's stuff that you can do. Are they at a crossroads? Are you at a crossroads with this client? Should you cultivate this relationship and try and improve it? Or should you cut your losses and get rid of the client? Or are they draining? Draining clients is probably a chance for what I call addition by subtraction. If your worst client, you're probably better off firing them now. Even if they can pay you and they pay you well, if everything else about them sucks, you're probably better off getting rid of the client and seeing if you can find another home for them, okay? You need to be comfortable with the fact that whatever you come up with is going to be totally arbitrary, okay? This is just for your internal use, and it's your own sanity check to make sure that the people that you have, that you're doing work for, are the kinds of people that you want to work for, okay? So what I do is I have a spreadsheet, and I will score on all 6 of these clients, or all 6 of these categories. Each sub-score is from 0 to 5, and I don't have half points or anything like that. I'm scoring everybody in one of these categories, okay? That score is then added together to give me a total, and then I use A, B, C, and I use F instead of D, okay? And I have this spreadsheet. I will list everybody that I'm currently working on, and I'll go through and do this scoring. And if this sounds tedious, it is a little bit, but it doesn't take as long as you think. I would say this takes 30 to 45 minutes for me to do when I do it, and I do it about once a quarter. I put it on my calendar. Okay. And then these are the numbers I'm looking at. I want as many A clients as possible, and I want as many AB clients as possible. 100% A would be great. I submit to you that if you review all of your current clients and 100% of them you're giving A's to, it is very likely your scoring is too generous, and you probably need to go back and redo it, because very few of us find ourselves in a situation where every single client we have is amazing. Maybe you do, in which case you're being wildly successful, and that's great. But think about whether that's actually true for you. Okay. So that's kind of the entire presentation. Are there any questions? Are there any comments that you guys want to share? This can be an open discussion for however long y'all want to hang around.
Mike, this is Pete. I wanted to jump in and thank you. First of all, that was a great presentation. I'm just curious, can you share some of the epiphanies that you found as you've gone through this quarterly that really jumped out at you in the past?
Sure. So I'm an attorney. For those who don't know, I do mostly domestic relations and landlord-tenant work. I do a lot of small business commercial litigation as well. I have been a solo until about 3 months ago. So for the last 7 years, I've had a practice where I'm the only guy here. And when I first started doing this at a point where I had 50-something clients and was feeling like I was doing a lot of wheel spinning. And what this revealed to me the first time I did it was that I had about 6 clients I needed to fire on the spot. 4 of them I did fire on the spot. The other 2 were so close to the end of their case that it was easier to just get them done. So they became priorities, and I just got them done. And since then, I have noticed, first of all, I have fewer clients. I'm in the 40s right now, which is pretty high for me. And most of my clients are in the AB range. I did actually just do this exercise about 2 weeks ago, or it feels like 2 weeks ago. I think we're all under kind of a time distortion right now. Very recently, though. And I found that I have 2 clients that I would consider C clients right now. One of them is very close to the end, and so they'll get some priority from me. And the other one is one that I think I can fire. So I'll get rid of it. But I have noticed that since I've been rigorously doing this, I've been keeping myself from driving myself crazy with my worst clients by getting rid of that bottom tier. The other thing I think has happened as a collateral benefit for me, at least, is in my networking efforts with BNI and for other things, I have sharpened my message. I am much more in tune with what I'm looking for and able to be specific about that. So I think that's a collateral effect of knowing specifically what you want enables you to specifically ask for that.
Sure. Can you talk to evolution as you've gone through this process as well?
I can. I'm not 100% sure what you're asking, though.
Well, so you spoke earlier about the fact you can have multiple ICPs, which I know that I have. And so I'm just curious, did you evolve your ICP or create a new category, maybe, for example? And then a follow-up to that would be with the grading. Did you find that you needed to sort of tighten that up?
The grading has tightened up over time. I tend to be pretty brutally honest with myself a lot. If anything, I'm probably underscoring some of my clients. But that's because I'm really looking for who is at the bottom. I'm not concerned with who's at the top. I like the ones that are at the top. They'll be there. I want to keep them. So patting myself on the back by saying, yay, I have all great clients is not really useful for me. So if anything, I probably err on the other side. The other thing I would say is, like I said a minute ago, I find I have fewer clients, and the clients that I have are higher quality because of being systematic about looking at this. As far as the profiles that I use, I have about 4 that I'm really looking for. Of course, the irony is that your clients won't always fit that profile, but at least it helps your messaging to know what you're going after. So, for example, on the domestic side, one thing that I tell my group a lot that I'm looking for, kind of a really good client profile for me is your mom who's been out of work for a long time because she stopped to raise the children. Dad is an executive who has a good income, has probably got a better handle on the finances of the family, and mom may be a little bit clueless just because she hasn't been plugged into that stuff. And so I find that I work well with those types of clients. You know, in terms of the age of the kids tend to be middle school, high school, maybe younger. They tend to have kids, first of all. And they live in North Atlanta, most of them. So being able to kind of refine that and zero in on it. And now as I look at, there's a big board in my office that has all of my cases on it, and most of them are in Cobb County. The rest of them, by and large, are in either Fulton or Cherokee. So I know that I've zeroed in on my area. Don't have as much in DeKalb or Gwinnett or further out anymore. So, and that's
wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. And I like the fact that you tied it to your top 20 list or however you're ranking your clients there as well. So thanks for the time and the information.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here and thanks for the comments.
Mike, you know, years ago when I left my financial planning firm and went to work for the Hartford, my manager kind of suggested the same thing to me. And I put together a score, I put together 2 ratings. One was I was doing all wholesale business, and I would look at the advisor, and you know, some of the advisors had a book of business of, you know, $100-200 million with 500 or 600 clients. My favorite one was up in Dalton with Wells Fargo, and he had client control. He had the clients. He had everything he needed except the one most important thing, which was he would never pursue the opportunity to discuss. And so I would have a 0 rating. I would have like 5 categories. And if any one of those was a 0, that meant, you know, you do the math, it's a 0. And when I did these and ranked them the way you suggested, my business and efforts got far more effective and efficient. I also had client rankings as well, and I've just gotten away from it. And I don't know why. And the last time you made this presentation, I thought I needed to do it, and somehow or another I got away from it. And I can see where this would be an extremely valuable, you made me think of somebody who is a client I don't want to pursue, you know, the one that you don't want. It's a guy who complains all the time that you never call him or never follow up, but when you do, he never calls you back.
Right.
And it's like, you know, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I'm feeling guilty about it because he complains that, you know, his people don't call him back. And it's like, well, gee, no wonder. You know, when they do, you don't ever follow up. So goodbye, you're no longer my client.
Well, and so I beefed up the end of this presentation this time compared to the last time I gave it for that exact reason, because I was having that very same problem. When do you revisit this? When do you come back to this? And you have to do it regularly. So for me, 2 things. 1, it's on my calendar. I'm going to do this once a quarter. And 2, I have my little mastermind group that helps me keep me accountable to this. And I've told them I want to be accountable to it, and I make it a takeaway every time it comes up on my calendar. I make sure that I'm accountable to them so that I'm not just letting myself down if I don't do it. I'm also letting them down if I don't do it. And that keeps me doing it on a regular basis. In a perfect world, I think I'd do it probably every 6 to 8 weeks, but quarterly is about all I can manage, and it's probably enough.
One thing I thought of this time, having done this before, is, and usually it's hard for me to pick an ideal client because I tend to like most of my clients, but, and they're all very different. But the one thing that I was thinking this time is I'm wondering if our ideal client profile will change now. If we think outside the box of who needs us and what we can have to offer. For example, I'm offering a lot of free online life coaching and sessions because people can't get out, but their stress and anxiety levels are super high. But I don't generally work with a lot of first responders, but I'm getting a lot of those in as interested in these free sessions. So that may make me think I might want to look at potentially adding another ideal client profile because of the times that we're under right now. So I don't know if that would fit for any of you guys that are on the call, but is there a way to think about not even just who our current clients are now, but given everything that we're going through and what's going to transpire beyond these days when we do kind of get back into life as we kind of knew it, will there be another ideal client out there for you that you may want to be thinking about who that is now? Does that make sense? Or
It does. And what was occurring to me when you were talking was, you know, at the beginning you said, I wonder if I ought to change it. And my reaction to that, you kind of came back to that on your own, was, I don't know if you need to change
Right.
who your ideal client profile was before. You may want to refine that to some degree through having additional experience over time. But what you said at the end made more sense to me, which is maybe you have another ideal client
Right.
profile to go after out there.
Mhm.
And it can be a slippery slope. I don't think you want 15 ideal clients, ideal client profiles, because you can't have 15 ideal clients. Somebody has to be more idealer than others, right? So, but at some point, you're in different areas, you're serving different markets, so you are going to have a different ICP for each of those markets, I think.
Yeah.
If I could add, Mike, to that, I know the way at least I think about it for my practice, it's sourcing strategy, right? And so we're definitely having to readjust with the shelter in place, and does that correlate with a new ICP or maybe just a change in how I go to market in promoting myself? That's how I've been thinking about it. Because Amy, I'm right there with you. I've been doing the same sort of online webinar services, and frankly, what a great segue to thank you guys for hosting this. This has been wonderful.
Well, we've been doing these, like I said, we can't wait, I think, to get back to doing them at Tijuana Joe's. I think we're all looking forward to life returning sort of to normal. And those of you who are in the area, and Rusty, I don't want to exclude you from that. Whenever you're over, if you happen to be in our neck of the woods on the first Friday, come have lunch with us.
Yes.
But we do these every first Friday of the month. We've skipped one or two over the last couple of years, but we try and do them every week.
Can I apologize for coming in a few minutes late. I got here right at 11:45. Wanted to get here at 11:30, but I would love to have Pete and Kristen. Martin, you told us what you did, and Rusty, just go back and tell us what y'all do, and at least for my benefit and the benefit of anybody else that came in a little late.
I've got to run here shortly, so if y'all don't mind, I'll go first. I'm Rusty Adams. I'm from the BNI chapter in Athens, Georgia. Personally, I do residential estimates for a painting company called CertaPro Painters. We're national and have franchises everywhere. We have a few in Atlanta as well. So I personally do the residential estimating and sales. So that's pretty much what I do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen, how about you next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kristen Regan. I am a financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is in Kennesaw. I understand that you have a financial advisor in your group, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm a financial advisor in Kennesaw.
Well, Kristen, just so you know, I used to be with the Hartford, which now would be, I guess, we were huge supporting Edward Jones advisors on the life insurance side some years ago, before the Great Recession took the Hartford, before Prudential bought the Hartford. I don't know whether Prudential has a similar relationship, but anyway, I was very familiar with calling on Edward Jones firms when I worked there.
Thank you.
Marvin, I'm just going in. Martin, sorry, not Marvin. Going in alphabetical order, Pete. We'll catch you in a minute.
Yeah, I'm a sales rep with Humana. I work on the Medicare side. So I offer Medicare Advantage plans, Medicare Supplement plans, Part D plans, basically direct to consumer. And, you know, the ideal client for me is someone who already has their red, white, and blue card. Typically, they're age 65 or older. They can be younger due to disability, but that's who I work with.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin. All right, Pete, your turn.
I'm up, so let me unmute and say hello to Kristen, a colleague of mine. I too am a financial advisor with Edward Jones. And so you all are aware, sort of East Cobb is right in the nook of several different regions. And so Kristen, for your note, I'm in region 276, but focused on the Sandy Springs market, and in the BNI chapter that Martin Willis leads up for us, called Referral Badness.
Awesome. All right, we got about 10 minutes before the published end of the thing. Anybody have anything else they want to share?
I just want to say thanks, Mike. Great content, and definitely having moved my practice, a few months ago, a lot of, athletic, well-minded, wellness-oriented patients were popping in my mind. So definitely, kind of reassures that we're on the right track, having, moved over here full time. and just appreciate the exercise. And I had to step out briefly in between for a picture. Sorry about that.
No worries. So those who don't know, Julie is a chiropractor. She is based in a gym here in East Cobb, in our Iron Tribe Fitness, which about half of us on the call miss very dearly.
Hey, Mike, this is Rich. I remember this, most of it from the last time you presented this, and I apologize for missing part of it, but very, very helpful. I would like to see if I could get that, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, your chart and your grading. That would be quite helpful.
Sure. I did record the webinar, so I haven't figured out how to make that available, but I will. And I also put the chart on my website, so I'll get you a link to that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mike. It was real informative.
Good. I'm glad you got something out of it. We're just trying to make sure we kind of keep things as normal as we can these days.
So we can tell them our next event's coming up if we have any that we know of for sure. For the ones who aren't normally with us, Kristen and Pete, and let's see, what do we have? Well, our next lunch and learn will be the first Friday of May, so you can put that on your calendar. Probably will be doing this format again, I would think, possibly by then.
And the first Friday of May is actually May 1.
Okay. And then we do a monthly trivia night, normally at Suburban Tap, just a local tavern down the road here in East Cobb. But we did one the other night on just this same Zoom format, and it was a lot of fun. Amanda and Mike and myself and Richard and Roy, we were all on there. And so Mike kind of headed that up. And when's our next one?
I get the number of that bus. I was thinking we might do it on the 15th, which is two weeks out, on a Wednesday, 8 o'clock, be on this Zoom channel. So I'll push that out to everybody.
I just want to say to Amanda and Amy how much better we would have done had the text messages we sent to each other actually arrived.
I know.
We're going to use Facebook.
But we won anyway. We never win.
We were at like 11 o'clock. The text messages we were sending during our trivia session started showing up on our phones. It was pretty wild.
It's true.
For the second half, instead of them sending the text messages to me, they sent them to everybody else, and I wasn't getting them. And of course, I didn't know any of the answers. And I thought we just dove.
Poor Richard.
Yeah.
We have fun.
It was fun.
It was a good time. I tell people to assemble their own teams and figure out how to communicate not through the Zoom channel.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But yeah, you guys are welcome to join for that if you want to. And we did have one solo. He did not fare as well as if he was on the team.
But he played some good guitar.
He played some guitar, and he hung in there all the way to the end.
But Martin or Pete or Kristen, if you guys have anything going on with your chapters, let us know so we can maybe stay connected with y'all also through these next several weeks.
Okay, we definitely will.
Are y'all meeting through Zoom as well, doing all the stuff that we're supposed to be doing? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm part of the Crossroads Connections chapter over in Marietta. So if you guys, anybody in that area, in the Marietta area, kind of the West Cobb side, we have a lot of seats open. We're a smaller chapter, so if you have anybody that is looking for a chapter, we'd be happy to give them the information and have us join us online.
When do y'all meet?
We meet Thursday mornings at 7:45.
Okay. What about Pete and Martin? What do you guys meet?
Wednesday mornings at 7:30.
And y'all are Referral Madness? No. Yeah. Okay.